In a world where education is key, finding the right math program for your kids is crucial. And that's where CTC Math steps in. This isn't just another math program, it's a comprehensive math curriculum covering everything from K to 12. What sets it apart? The video tutorials. They're not just educational, they're engaging, breaking down complex topics into bite-sized, understandable pieces. It's like having a math expert in your home, available anytime. And it's not about memorizing facts. It's about truly understanding math concepts. The kind of understanding that sticks with them, not just until the next test, but for life. Plus, the flexibility is unbeatable. Whether you're homeschooling or supplementing after-school learning, CTC Math fits into your schedule, not the other way around. Why not take the leap? Visit ctcmath.com today and start your free trial. Discover how a comprehensive curriculum can challenge your child's perspective on math. It's time to give them the tools they need to succeed. That's ctcmath.com.
This is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network. Welcome to the Vintage Homeschool Moms Show. Your host, Felice Gerwitz, is an author, a publisher, and your radio show host. She will encourage, educate, and inspire you with answers to your most pressing questions from homeschool, marriage, parenting, and much more. Felice loves to equip moms to live a Christian life because every moment counts. Be sure to visit her website at mediaangels.com. And here's your host, Felice Gerwitz.
When you think about AI, tech jobs, and blue-collar workers, are you fearful or hopeful? In this episode, we're going to tackle the question that many homeschool parents wonder: is college worth all the money? Join me today as we explore the topic and how it may impact your children and their future careers. Hey friends, and welcome. My name is Felice Gerwitz, and today we are talking about a topic that we've heard a lot about recently, and that is that AI may be taking some of the white-collar jobs. And as my son says, who is a blue-collar worker, eventually it will come for our jobs as well. But not yet. So I'd like to welcome you to Vintage Homeschool Moms, and if you are new, welcome, and if you're a long-time listener, thanks for stopping in again. You can find today's show notes at vintagehomeschoolmoms.com, and please give me a star rating on your favorite app and leave me any kind of comments you want. You can actually do it on the website on this post. Well, I know that we're all concerned about our children's futures. And as we homeschool, there's so much that we're involved in on a day-to-day basis that sometimes we forget. And so it's wonderful when we do have the opportunity to sit down with our kids and really say, what do you think you want to do in the future? So as most homeschoolers know, that we homeschool because we love our kids, first and foremost. And we want them to be instilled with, godly philosophies and thoughts and discussions in our day-to-day life, and especially if you are, like I am, a Christian. So when these topics come up, sometimes it's worth taking a pause to see if this is something that we should be concerned about, or if it's something that's applicable to our own families. Before I get too far ahead of myself, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, and that is CTC Math. You can find them on the website, and be sure to click that homeschool button, because there you'll find a deep discount for homeschool families. We want to thank CTC Math for being a longtime sponsor of the Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network, and especially this show, Vintage Homeschool Moms. Thanks so much, and we appreciate it. Well, Much has happened in the last few years, and the quantum leap in AI technology can be frightening, to say the least. That is, if you have a healthy understanding of how search engines function. And it used to be a really useful tool, right? We got on and we used a search engine to find what we needed. It's not perfect, but it's way better than it used to be. But then AI came along, and with that came what I figured was a little bit of intrusiveness in our lives. Sure, we can use machine technology because that's basically what it is, a machine, and it's only as smart as the input. But AI is way better than that robot voice we used to hear when we turned on AOL. If you're old enough to remember that, you'd hear the words, "You've got mail." The power of AI technology is threatening some of the most sophisticated jobs, including accounting, medical analysis, decision-making, code creation, marketing, and much, much more. In fact, I've heard of people who have uploaded their medical lab work, and they've asked AI to give them a synopsis of what was there. And basically they said it was very similar to what their doctors told them. So it's something to be concerned about. Many analysts fear that entry-level white-collar jobs are easily replaceable in the future, especially if AI continues to improve, which it is. If you're like me, you've walked into a fast food restaurant only to be greeted by rows of kiosks or computer screens that are ready to take our orders. This is AI in the workplace. Many times I circumvent those machines and I walk up to the counter, and you would not believe it, but most of the time the person at the counter is very happy that I do because it gives them a little bit of job security. There are some of us that don't like putting our information in a machine, and there are many others who like it because, let's face it, it's quicker. But what about blue-collar jobs? Currently, they seem safe, but in the past, many jobs were replaced with automation. The car industry is one example. Remember all the assembly lines that they had? Well, a lot of that got replaced with machines. But thankfully, car assembly workers are still necessary. In the not-so-distant past, we heard this big story about the dock workers that went on strike, and one of the concessions was that the shipping industry agreed not to replace all of the dock workers with automation, or a good portion of them. I'm sure at some point it will happen, but it was a win for the workers and the powerful unions. Will computers take over everything, and where does it stop? Well, it seems that with highly skilled blue-collar workers, their jobs are safe for now. And all this discussion hits close to home for me because we run a service industry. We are carpenters, have a contracting company, and we build homes. While my husband's a general contractor, his focus is on carpentry, rough carpentry to be exact, which is highly skilled, and it's a dangerous area of new house construction. They're the ones who build the exterior walls if they're out of wood. They set trusses, those pointy things that look like upside down seesaws, and they raise them with a crane. They also build interior walls, sometimes out of wood and other times out of metal, and anything else involving wood framing. Well, most of the men on the job are strong and young and capable. They're able to climb ladders, get on the roofs, and balance on beams. They can lift those heavy power tools, and they work with powerful nail guns. Let's just say I avoid the job sites like I used to take my little kids when they wanted to see, daddies at work. And one time he was doing a house in our subdivision down the road, and it didn't take me long to realize how dangerous it really was. Yes, they have lots of safety features in place. But one of the reasons that carpenters get paid so much is because it's dangerous, and it takes training. A lot of their skills are learned on the job because each foreman runs a job differently, so often the carpenters need to change the way they've always done something to a new way that's more efficient and time-saving. And that equals bigger paychecks and bonuses. White-collar jobs have come under fire with a statement by Mike Rowe of Dirty Jobs Acclaim. He warned that highly skilled white-collar workers would be replaced in the near future, but that highly skilled blue-collar workers are scarce. And let's face it, most parents don't want their sons or daughters to become plumbers, electricians, or HVAC installers, or even appliance repair people. They want their children to go to college. And I was one of those people in the not so long ago past. I had a pastor and dear friend who recently passed away in July of 2025. And he was our pastor for over 38 years. Well, he would come over to dinner, and when he came, none of the kids left the table because he was so entertaining. He was a strong Irishman who didn't mince words. I complained one time after dinner to him that my son, who was 16 at the time, did not want to go to college. Earlier, we had a conversation where he wanted to know what he could do to take over his father's business. Well, Father Toner looked me right in the eye and said, "Felice, of course he shouldn't go to college if he wants to work construction. He'd be brilliant at it." And I realized he was right. Nick began to apprentice a year later, and I tailored his class load to reflect his interests. One of the sciences he took was oceanography. In fact, he loved the book so much, shout out to Apologia, that he would run into the room where I was homeschooling the other two kids, and he would say, "We've got a book. I bookmarked this because we have to read this as a family later. It's really interesting." And he loved to work with his hands. He worked on mechanics. In fact, I thought he was going to work in like heavy duty diesel, like a diesel mechanic. But he went and looked at it and said this is something he was good at, but not something he wanted to do for a living. So he would work on it on a small scale. He fixed my appliances. One time it took an $8 part for my mixer. I couldn't believe it. I had a KitchenAid, and it was nearing the holidays, and I was, using it a lot. And my husband said, it kind of sounds funny. And he walked away, and my son came and goes, "Mom, it sounds like you're stripping a gear." And I said, "Well, can you fix it?" And he said, "Sure." So he went online, found an $8 part, and he said, we can get it in a week. I said, "No, we need it quickly." So he said, "Well, I can overnight it for $8. So total $16 part. He took my mixer apart, and I said, "Do you know what you're doing?" And he said, "Not really." But he did, and he put it back together, and it worked like new for many, many years. And I actually passed it down to my daughter. And we were just laughing about that the other day, and especially when I said, "I can't believe you fixed it for $16. And he goes, "Well, it was $100 more." And I said, "What was that cost for?" And he said, "For my labor." And it was a joke, and I did not pay him $100. I paid him in cookies. But the point being that if I had probably brought in that machine to get fixed somewhere, if there is even such a place, it would have probably cost that much. So at 16, he had a thriving repair business for the coaches at the ball field who owned a landscaping business. He heard them talking about how costly the tool repairs were, and he said, "Well, I can do it for cheaper." And they said, "Okay, we'll give you a chance." And they brought over their, equipment, and he was able to make $20 to $25 an hour, which was half what they were paying. My oldest son also worked construction for many years, but then he decided he'd rather deliver furniture. And it was a role that suited him much better than construction. He made a very good, steady salary with generous tips. That son is what I call my problem child, and he has switched jobs many times. Currently, he drives for a rideshare company, but that suits his night owl tendencies, and it was easier for him to sleep in and to have a job where he's his own boss. So it really depends on the person. And one of the things that I really noted in writing this podcast was that and it's going to be a second part podcast that will air the next week after this one. But I want to discuss why people have difficulty being successful in a job. And it has little to do with skill. And I'm going to share some of that in the next podcast. So what's the future of AI and blue-collar jobs? From my perspective as a homeschool mom, we've seen the value in hands-on trades through my own family's experience. And it's a mix of caution and hope. AI is advancing rapidly, but it's not the doomsday scenario for every job out there. So what do the analysts say? They predict that while AI could affect at least 80% of the U.S. labor force by impacting 10% or more of their work tasks, blue-collar roles, especially skilled trades like carpentry, plumbing, electrical work, and HVAC, are poised to thrive. Why? Well, because these jobs require physical dexterity and on-the-job problem solving and human judgment that AI and robots struggle to replicate fully right now. In fact, AI is more likely to augment these workers, making them more productive by handling data analysis, predictive maintenance, or safety monitoring in industries like utilities and farming. I mean, some of you may have smart digital thermometers that you can control with a remote. I know my refrigerator has that capacity, although I don't have it connected. And we can think of it like a computer or a tool. It saves time, it reduces risks rather than a complete replacement. Plus, blue-collar jobs offer stability and high pay. By 2020, the U.S. will be short of over 2 million skilled trade workers unless something is done. Leading companies are beginning to raise their wages to attract talent, and these careers honor the dignity of hard work and provide for families which align with God's call to stewardship. That said, no one's entirely immune. Experts warn that AI-enabled robots could start encroaching on some blue-collar areas like basic construction or logistics in the next decade, and broader economic shifts from AI might indirectly affect demand. But here's the encouraging part, especially for us Christian parents raising the next generation. As Mike Rowe points out, blue-collar shortages are real, and at some point, AI may replace low-skill entry points, but it still elevates the need for human expertise. So what does that mean for our kids? This means focusing on trades could lead to stable, well-paying careers that align with biblical values of hard work and stewardship. Like in Proverbs 22:29, do you see a man skilled in his work? He will serve before kings. But friends, the key is that it is important to see where there is a need and to fill it. As homeschoolers, we have that flexibility to prepare our kids with practical skills now. And we can include faith, education, and real-world training. And that is my favorite thing, truthfully, about homeschooling, is that we can pivot when needed. I've put some links on the website from the Epoch Times articles on jobs surviving AI and also a Fox News on blue-collar opportunities that you may want to check out. But let's look at vocational training while homeschooling. There are 7 additional points I want to make, and each has some outcomes for your children. Sorry, the teacher in me just couldn't resist. Some of the outcomes cover building confidence, financial independence, and a sense of purpose, as well as other resources that will help you. I've drawn from sites that align with encouraging blue-collar paths as honorable, God-giving calling, and included references to my own Vintage Homeschool Moms episodes where they fit. Please note, I have not checked every single website in full detail, so I am going to give you that. Check them out, become familiar with them, and do your own due diligence. The one I have looked at extensively because of our trades and where we pull a lot of our safety information from is OSHA-approved website, and I have that resource there. So the first point with the idea of vocational skills is to look for apprenticeships in the trades. Your children can start with doing some things around the house, doing things for the neighbor, but also if there's someone where they can start with an on-the-job shadowing or maybe even a formal apprenticeship. There are lots of companies that are welcoming these, especially today. They can be in carpentry, electrical, plumbing, even HVAC. In our state, you can begin at 16. However, you must complete an OSHA-approved course. The kids can gain hands-on experience and earn money while learning, often securing a job post-high school and avoiding college debt, which is good. That also helps them develop discipline and problem solving, which is important. You can check out the OSHA website. My grandson worked through an approval class with a printed certificate. There are limitations on what teens 16 and 17 can do on the job site, so make sure you look at those. I've also put in a link for some other websites, including Vintage Homeschool Moms, my episode on 7 ways to earn high school credits, and you can find out that information. The second is online vocational courses for the trades. You can have your kids enroll in a flexible online program that covers some of the basics. Again, that is something that you will want to look into. And there's a Path to Pros free on-demand training program that you can check out. And then there's the number 3 is the trade school prep for homeschoolers. If you don't have relatives who can give your child on-the-job training, consider a vocational school. And they have, lots of options and careers. There may be an entrance test that you'll need to check out. I know when my son was considering it before he decided to do on-the-job training with his dad, we went to the library and got the book that he was going to need to be able to pass the vocational testing and entry. But whatever you do, check into it and talk about it, because the kids can change their mind very easily. And I know even though my son was really good at mechanics, that was something he didn't want to do for the rest of his life. So it's something you can check out. And again, I have a trade school paths link there. And then there's also family businesses or entrepreneurs. And that is something that we've done a lot. You can incorporate business skills into homeschooling, like starting a small repair business or a landscaping service. My children grew up with parents who own their own business. We have several. I have a Media Angels publishing company. I own this platform with the Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network and the Ultimate Christian Podcast Network. So I run online podcasting services. My husband has a home inspection business that mostly is part-time for him because he's pretty much full-time at Gerwitz Construction, which is a construction company. And so again, very important to look at what entrepreneurship teaches, and that is, a lot about financial literacy, work ethic, family teamwork. Eventually, they could own their own business. My son, who is good at mechanics, has a side business where he rents out a lot of the machinery that he's bought for good prices and repaired, or he's purchased brand new, and he has a side rental business that he does. So again, there's a link to some fun summer projects, family business for entrepreneurs. And then there's also a blue collar EDU platform that gives kids ideas. Like they might say, well, what does it mean to be a carpenter? Or what does it mean to be an electrician? And it will give them ideas of what that job entails. There are also virtual trade schools. Again, there's a link there for one that I found online. Community co-ops and vocational programs. That could be something that you check into. You can ask your neighbors, your friends in your homeschool group, or even your church. Does someone know of anyone who would be hosting a session for homeschoolers? I know there was a dad that did a lot of fine carpentry work, like, building cabinets and doing things like that. And so I know he hosted some things for the kids. And I love it because my husband said, we're carpenters and Jesus had carpenter roots. So a little bit of bias there. And then there is certificate focused homeschool electives. So you can tailor your homeschool courses around mechanics or construction certificates and things like that, and give your kids some credit for doing some of those work skills. Proverbs 16:3 calls us to commit to work for the Lord, right? And so that's important. There's a resource, Penn Foster Career School, that offers vocational online training. And then also check out Bridgeway Academy. They have a lot of homeschool options with a customizable vocational track. I know that many parents like me have changed their minds about the importance of college. I do have 3 children that went the college track, and all of them are debt-free, thankfully, because of how we structured college. And my husband and I paid for a portion. They got scholarships. My daughter lived at home, my second oldest child. And so we were able to save money in that way. And she went to a local college. So you can look at different career paths and see what is it that they really want to do, and do they really need that degree? And I agree, college may not be the goal for many, but it could be for some. And I hope this podcast has helped you sort out some of the questions you might have. In the next podcast, I'm going to focus on some of the job skill prerequisites that are important for all students to have before joining a workforce. It's something that, I thought about as I was writing this, thinking, gosh, but you need this and this and this first. So I probably should have done the prerequisite one first, but it's following next. Anyway, friends, thanks so much for joining me on Vintage Homeschool Moms. Remember, whether your children pursue tech, trades, or something in between, God has a plan for their life. Take care, everyone. God bless, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Vintage Homeschool Moms Show. Visit Felice at MediaAngels.com and TheVintageHomeschoolMoms.com. Vintage Homeschool Moms is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network.